Hey guys, it's your friendly neighborhood film student. You might notice I'm in front of a different colored wall today. That's because I'm not doing a channel whatever news this week. Those take a hot second to write because I have to go through news articles and write jokes and plan segments and find people to interview, and it's like a whole ordeal. So I thought every other week I'll put out a channel whatever news, and then on the off weeks I'll do like a miscellaneous video, and those will probably be vlogs or games with my friends, and it'll definitely be a lot of film related stuff because that's what I'm dedicating my life to, you know? Media theory is something that I'm especially fascinated by, and it's not something I get to spend a lot of time writing about or talking about at school outside of the class that I took for it last semester. So that's what today is. Don't worry, you don't have to be a film student to understand this video. My goal is to make it as enjoyable and accessible to non-film people as possible, because I think that everyone could benefit from viewing their media through a new lens. So today I'm going to be using a theory called Semiotics to analyze one of my favorite shows, Good Omens. There are going to be massive spoilers for the last episode, so if you're planning on watching it and haven't yet, maybe go do that first and then come back to this video. If not, I will give a plot summary and I'll warn you when the major spoilers are coming up. So first things first, what is semiotics? Essentially, in the most basic of definitions, semiotics is a theory used to analyze how we convey meanings. The base unit of semiotics is called the sign, which is basically a thing used to represent something. For example, the letter A is a sign that represents both the meaning of the letter A and the sound that you make when reading the letter A. Signs are made up of two parts. There's the signifier, which is an image, physical object, smell, sound, physical feeling that is used to represent something. And then there's the signified, which is the thing that the signifier represents. So essentially, the signifier is something you see or hear or smell, and the signified is what that sight or sound or smell means. For example, a signifier could be a drawing of a dog, and the signified would be the concept of a dog, like the furry four-legged animal that barks a lot. So the signifier and the signified are the most basic meaning of a sign. It's what you see and what that sight means objectively. The second order of signification is connotation, which is a subjective meaning that's added on top of the objective one. So for example, if the objective meaning of a dog is a furry four-legged animal, the connotation of dog can differ between people. For people who like dogs, the connotation might be a feeling of happiness or the love they have for their pet dog. But for people who don't like dogs, the connotation might be fear. So signs are organized into syntagms, which are the order that signs appear in. And each sign inside a syntagm is a paradigm, which means it can be changed out for another sign, and that will change the meaning of the entire syntagm. For example, if you took off your clothes, opened the shower curtain, and stepped into the shower, that is the process of taking a shower. Each step in that is like a sign, and the order you do it in is a syntagm. Now, to play with the paradigms, if you were to take off your clothes, open the front door, and step through it, you would be streaking. So just changing one piece of that order changes the entire meaning of the process. The final piece of semiotics is called the code, which is any set of rules that governs a syntagm. Returning to the shower example, it's generally accepted that you take off your clothes before you step into the shower because you want to wash your body. If you were to break that code and step into the shower with your clothes on, then you'd be changing the meaning of the action. You'd be washing your clothes and not your body. So I know I just threw a lot of big words at you, but hopefully applying it to Good Omens will help you understand it a little bit better and also show you how genius the show's creators are. Codes are very, very important in Good Omens, especially in how they portray heaven and hell and the main characters' relationships to those places. So for those of you who haven't seen the show, it's a 6-part miniseries on Amazon Prime based on a novel by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, and it follows a variety of characters in the days leading up to the apocalypse as foretold in the Bible. The main characters are an angel, Aziraphale, and a demon, Crowley, It was their job to ensure the end of the world, but they've grown so fond of humanity that they're now determined to stop the apocalypse from happening. This mindset essentially makes them enemies of both heaven and hell. This is where semiotics comes into play. There is a very specific code that's established early on for how heaven and hell are portrayed, and these are very symbolic of the relationships that Aziraphale and Crowley have to those places. The code stays the same throughout the entire series until the last episode when the relationship changes and the code breaks. So let's start with the code for heaven. Here the rule is generally that Aziraphale, and therefore the viewer, should always be as uncomfortable as possible when they're in heaven. The first shot that we see of heaven is immediately grating to look at, and this is achieved through a couple of signs working together. For example, the camera is placed at an extremely odd angle. It's almost at the floor and it's looking up at Aziraphale. Normally a low angle can mean that the character being shown is in a position of power, but in this case, the odd framing makes it appear that Aziraphale is smaller than the Archangel Gabriel's pant leg, which takes up the entire right side of the frame. To see how paradigms play a role here, let's see what would happen if we changed one of the signs. If we remove Gabriel from the shot entirely, the shot takes on a whole new meaning. Aziraphale is now in a position of tremendous power. He's towering over the camera and therefore over the viewer, which means he has complete authority. However, the choice to keep Gabriel in the shot reveals that Aziraphale is essentially less important than his superior's pants. He has absolutely no power in this situation. Another sign used to create discomfort is the distortion at the edges of the frames. The pillars behind Aziraphale should be standing straight up, but due to the distortion they are bent in towards the center. This hints at the corruption that's revealed later in the show, and it also traps Aziraphale in the center of the frame. This creates a distinct suffocating connotation for both the viewer and Aziraphale. The suffocation gets worse when you look at the framing of the other angels' faces, particularly Gabriel's. Gabriel's face is extremely close to the camera, so close that his forehead is cut off, which is a framing that filmmakers don't just use willy-nilly. In addition, a general rule of filmmaking is to leave looking room, or space in front of a character's eyes in the direction they're looking. Gabriel has almost no looking room, which makes the frame feel cramped and crowded despite the expanse of heaven stretching out behind him. All these signs combine to create the overall feel of heaven. It should be open and warm and inviting, but instead it feels cold, empty, and inescapable. Hell is also suffocating for Crowley, but this is achieved through a totally different code, which is whenever Crowley is in hell, he is never alone in a shot. This is a rule throughout the series. There's always at least one other demon visible at the same time as him, reminding the viewer of the overbearing watchfulness hell has over Crowley. If we play with paradigms here, like we did in heaven, we can change the meaning. Had the directors chosen to give Crowley his own frame, it might suggest that he has autonomy over his actions. But by having his superiors always surrounding him, it shows that Crowley has no choice but to follow orders or he will be punished. These portrayals of heaven and hell stay consistent throughout the first 5 episodes of this series. As the viewer, you unknowingly accept this code, that heaven and hell have more power than Crowley and Aziraphale, and everyone involved knows it. However, in the 6th and final episode, the code is broken at the climax of the story. And this is where things are going to get super spoilery, so if you don't want to know the ending, click away now, or like maybe just put me on mute and let the video play through so I still get that view time, you know? Okay. In the last episode, Aziraphale and Crowley are taken to heaven and hell to be tried and punished for their rebellion. What their superiors don't know is that they've disguised themselves as each other, and they are entering the trial with the intent of scaring their superiors so badly that they'll be left alone from now on. They succeed, and they gain the upper hand over the angels and demons, which is the exact moment that the code breaks for the first time the entire series. In heaven, the viewer finally sees a shot of Aziraphale that follows comfortable filmmaking conventions. Aziraphale is positioned according to the rule of thirds. He has ample looking room and there's no distortion to the edges of the frame, so the pillars behind him stand up straight. The camera is placed at a slightly low angle, but to a degree that suggests power rather than smallness. Heaven no longer stretches out for an impossibly long distance behind him. Instead, the back wall is very close to him. The substitution of all these paradigms for the pre-established signs make it clear that Aziraphale is no longer threatened by heaven. He has all the power and is in complete control of his situation. On the flip side, Crowley has a similar power switch during his trial. When he triumphs over the demons, we see the first shot in hell where Crowley is truly alone. There is not a single other demon in the shot. He has the entire frame to himself, and his whole body is in it with tons of room on every side of him. The changing of this paradigm shows the viewer that Crowley is finally free from hell's demanding eyes and has gained true autonomy. So there you have it. I could make at least 10 more videos analyzing Good Omens, and maybe I will. For now, I think this is a good start. It's a basic introduction to film theory, and it's a really fun thing to analyze. I think the filmmakers behind Good Omens did a fantastic job in their portrayals of heaven and hell, and I just wanted to share that with everyone. I think all this stuff is fascinating, and hopefully you found it at least interesting. I'm also open to analyzing other shows and videos, so if there's a show or TV show or a music video you really like, just put it in the comments and maybe I'll take a go at it. But until then, I will see you next week with the next episode of Channel Whatever News. Bye!